So we're going to replace this, and we're going to do it in less than 1 hour. I'm going to teach y'all how to do the patch, how to get that first skim coat on. Then we're going to take a break, and I'm going to show you the kit that I built that makes it possible to do this in less than 1 hour. Then we're going to come back and finish the patch off, and at the very end I'm going to talk to you about how I do my pricing and what I charge to do patches just like this. So the first thing we're going to need is some drywall. And we're going to take our new drywall here, and we're going to come up to this patch, and we're going to make sure that we extend over here a little bit and we come over here a little bit, and we're just going to score that going down, break it, cut it off. And then the same thing in this direction. We've got it wide enough now, so in this direction we just want to make sure we go above it a little bit, come down below, make a mark right about there. We'll go ahead and, oh, that was an ugly score. So let's do that one a little bit nicer. Score that one down, break it, rip it off the back, and now you've got a piece that's basically going to cover this hole up pretty good. So let's clean up the edges on it just a little bit. That looks not bad, not bad, not bad, not bad. This doesn't need to be perfect, guys. It's all going to get a bunch of mud over it. Maybe I'll just straighten out this side a tiny bit. That looks perfectly fine. Now, before you go any further, one of the things I want you to do is draw an arrow pointing up on this piece of drywall so that you know exactly which way it goes. So you draw your arrow pointing up, you've got that on there. Now you want to you can either take your knife, you can just go around and score it with your knife, or you can use your pencil and you can draw a perimeter that's the same size as your patch. Once you've got that perimeter drawn, you've got the arrow on this, now you can throw that aside and you're going to remember which way it orients. So once you've got that drawn, you're going to come over here to the corners and cut towards the center. And you're going to cut your perimeter if you didn't already. And once you've got your perimeter cut, just pound that through and or pull it back. Not too hard of a job. And you're just going to rip all of this off. And you want to come around to the back side here and you want to feel for any pieces that are sticking out because you don't want them to get in the way of your stringers, which I'll be showing you in just a minute. In fact, at this point, how about I set up a second camera back there so you can see what we're doing. There we go, that's a little better. So now we can grab the piece that we cut and we can see if it fits. It usually won't the first time. We got to trim it down a little bit. So the first trimming I'll do is going to be on the inside. And I'll just make sure that we don't have any drywall sticking out that didn't quite break off when we busted everything over. Next, I'll come to the actual patch, and I'll just kind of put a chamfer on this towards the back. So I'll leave all the paper on the front alone. I won't be cutting any paper on the front, but I'm just going to angle the edges on this towards the back side just a little bit. All right, now let's see if it fits. It seems like it mostly fits. I do have a little bit grabbing right down here, so I'm just going to shave that down a little more. And then I'm going to angle all of this to the back again. There we go. Maybe a little more. How about that? Cool. Stick her back in here, and that is a solid fit. I like that. So now we know that this is going to go, and again, we've got this arrow on here, so we're not going to forget which way that faces. Toss it to the side. Next thing we need to do is we need to get some stringers behind here so that we have something to attach our patch to. So we'll come over here, we'll grab a couple stringers out of the kit. I will be showing you all this kit in just a minute. We got our drill, we got our stringers. Let's go ahead and grab a couple screws here. Get a screw started in the drill, and all you're really going to have to do on this, assuming there's no studs or anything in the way, is you're just going to put your stringer behind here and you're going to bury about half the stringer over the edge. You're going to leave half of it showing. Come up here, stick a screw in until that screw pulls into the drywall because it's being pulled firmly by the stringer back there. Come to the bottom side, same thing. Till the head of that screw pulls right under the drywall. And then if you want, we can come over here to the edge and we'll just get that edge tightened up a little bit too. And then we'll grab the other stringer and we'll do the exact same thing to the other side. Get a screw started in your drill there. Go left-handed on this one. Get your stringer in place, about half of it, till the screw head is recessed. Another screw. That one's recessed. Let's add a couple more. Now, any holes bigger than this, I'm going to suggest that you go ahead and put a stringer here and a screw in the middle. However, for a hole this size, this is going to be enough to hold it super firmly. Now, something I did not do here that is optional if you guys care to do it, that I do quite frequently, is what I call bedding on these stringers, and I'll show you what bedding is. Bedding is where you take any kind of caulk and you're going to put a really thin layer. So I'll bed the actual patch even though I didn't bed the rest of the stringer. And you flatten this out just a little bit, and all this is going to do, we're not using this as any kind of adhesive. What we're using this for is to make sure that the patch just really beds down onto everything nicely. This is going to help make sure that this doesn't shift over time in the future. In my own personal opinion, it is good to put it all behind here too. But I just want to make sure you guys know this is an optional thing. You don't have to do it to the whole stringer. You don't have to do it to half the stringer. But I think you should do it as frequently as possible. So now that we've got all that done, make sure you don't have any of these little guys right here on the back. That's why we also ripped off everything on the back side of there earlier as well. Make sure your arrow is pointing up. We just don't want anything in between this and the stringer that's going to pop this piece out. So go ahead and pop that piece in. Grab a few more screws, grab your drill, and go to town. Whoop. There we go. Recess that screw head just a little bit. You don't have to be perfect about this, guys. As long as nothing's sticking out, this is all going to work just fine. You don't really have to worry about whether this is perfectly straight and level or if it's cocked to the side a little bit. Boom. And boom. And if you want to, just to be extra certain that everything's nice and tight, you can throw some more in there if you want. All right, so we've got the patch in. The next thing we want to do is going to be to just take our knife, and we really, as I was saying earlier, you don't want anything sticking out. We want this to be as either flushed or recessed, one or the other, as possible out here on this side. So any little pieces, just feel around on there, and anything that's sticking out, like this corner here, you can just go ahead and trim that off real quick. The rest of this feels pretty nice. Oh, one more piece. There we go. So, what's next? Next is going to be the tape. And for the tape, there's two methods to put this tape on. Number one is you can cut the tape with a utility knife like this. Or number two, you can put the tape on here, still attached to the roll, pin this down, and then rip it off like that. I find when I try to do that, I always end up with one strand of fiberglass still connected, and it becomes a mess. So I just go ahead and cut the tape myself. So we just come over here and do just about the right amount. Double that over, cut it off. And we can stick our first piece on. Just make sure it goes over that patch, doubles over both sides. If you can get it over the screw heads, that's even better. Pull our next piece out, same thing. Double it over right about where you want it to be. And go ahead and get that piece cut. Put it on the bottom. Now, I do not overlap my tape because I don't want anything sticking out from the wall any further than necessary. So for these pieces, I'm going to be real careful to make sure I cut them so that they fit inside of those other two pieces and that nothing overlaps. There's our piece of tape there. Oh, see, that's one of them extra little pieces of fiberglass strings that stick out there if you don't get all of them cut just right. Next, right about there. Get that piece of tape on. All right. Now, one more thing that I sometimes do is just try to make sure that this tape is really pushed down nicely. You don't want any of this popping up when you go to apply your first layer. Get rid of that little piece. You don't want any of this popping up when you go to put your first layer of mud on there. And speaking of mud, that's what it's time for now, so I'm going to show you guys the way I do my mud. And honestly, a whole lot of you are really going to hate the way I do my mud. I love getting comments over this, but here's what I do, guys. For small jobs like this, nothing bigger than this, but for small jobs like this, I'm always going to use hot mud and I'm going to mix it inside a Ziploc bag. The reason for that is because my priority is timing and efficiency, and for me, it's just much more efficient to have a tiny kit that doesn't have any pans or hawks in it, so that I could just be quick, kit in and out, mix it in here, throw it in the trash, never have to do any cleaning of any, like I said, hawks or pans or anything. So I've got my mud here. I'm going to grab a bottle of water, open up my sack of mud, open up the water, and I'm going to try to not put the exact amount of water in right away because I don't want to do too much. So I'm just going to put some water in, and you'll learn this by experience, but I'll put some water in, I'll start getting it mixed. If I put the correct amount of water in, which is going to be too little, right? I'm shooting for not enough water. Then right about now, yep, I'm feeling it starting to kind of harden up. So I'll add just a little bit more water. And then that second time I add water, I'm going to go ahead and shut this bag, squeeze all the air out, finish that off, and then I can start really squeezing the heck out of it. I use Ziploc brand and I use the freezer bags specifically because although every now and then I will get one with a small leak, these, for the most part, just really never leak on me. And one little hint that I'm going to give you about doing this very first skim coat here is I like to mix my mud for the first skim coat. I like to mix it a little bit thin. I want to make sure that it really bonds. I want to make sure it gets inside this crack, and I want to make sure that it does a super good job of bonding and getting into every little nook and cranny. And then the second skim coat, I'll mix not quite so thin. So at this point, I'm feeling around on everything. I don't feel any little hard pieces, no chunks left in here. You do want to give it just a little bit to start setting a tiny bit. It's very dry stuff, and it's going to soak up a little bit more moisture. But right about this point, now that we've gone about this long, I'm pretty confident that this is going to be good to go. So at this point, you can tear it off with your teeth if you want, or you could take a razor knife and you just want to come cut off a corner of that bag. Now I'm going to grab my 12-inch knife here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to now use this bag kind of like a baker decorating a cake. And I'm just going to squeeze this stuff out onto here, plenty of it. Come down the bottom, scrape up, do a little bit more, although we got plenty going on here. In fact, I don't really need any more than this, I think. So at this point, you've got a tarp on the ground. You can just drop this onto that tarp on the ground, and it'll go in the trash later. Just make sure you don't step on it. And this is super simple, guys. All you're doing now, you're not trying to make anything look any kind of perfect here. All you're doing is what I'm calling a first skim coat. You want it nice and flat. There's gonna be a few ridges here and there. You're gonna see some little pieces of the mud popping out from where your fiberglass tape is. But at this point, this is actually ready to just sit. And this is 5-minute mud that I'm using. So this 5-minute mud, now it's not going to be anything in particular in 5 minutes exactly. But what we're going to be able to do with this 5-minute mud now is it's going to set super fast so we don't have to wait a long time. And in about 5 to 10, 15 minutes at the latest, but about 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to be able to come back here and we're going to be able to scrape this. So in the meantime, I'm going to grab one of my rags out of the kit here. In the meantime, and again, this is to be fast and efficient, right? And we don't want to go make a mess in the client's sink, and we don't want to go back out to the van. We want to be as efficient as we can. So we grab one of our rags and we just clean all of the mud off of our knife here. Clean that mud off so your knife is ready to go again. And when we come back, we're going to be doing a very light scraping. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do now while this is setting is I'm going to show you my kit. And this is going to set for 5 to 10 minutes. So now let's take a look at the kit. All right, so this is my medium drywall patch repair kit. In the very top of this kit is going to be my inventory for signing in and signing out the kit, and each individual piece of inventory in the kit. Pretty self-explanatory. This blue tape, for the most part, is going to be for taping our tarp to the wall underneath the patch that we're doing so that the dust can't even get to the wall. Really probably don't need it for just about anything else. Next, we've also got our fiber tape, and you can use fiber or paper. I kind of like them both. They both have good points and they both have bad points, but make sure you got some tape in your kit and put some tape on your patches so they don't crack later. We've got a little razor knife, of course, just a utility knife for cutting the drywall. We've got our bags of hot mud. I think I've got about 7 of them in this kit altogether right now. Got some Alex Plus. This is really some of my favorite caulk right here, but this is just for bedding the actual stringers behind there that we're attaching our patch to. We've got our screws right here, just a little bin of 1 5/8 inch drywall screws. Seems to be my favorite size of drywall screw. Going down to the second layer. We've got number 1 in the back here. We've got all of our 1/2 inch stringers that we're going to use to attach everything. Now right now I've got 1/2 inch MDF. They're 3 inches wide and about 16 inches long. However, I'm probably going to change this over to 1/2 inch Baltic birch, and I'm probably going to go down to either 2 inches or maybe 2 1/4 inches wide. And I may keep the same length on them, but I'm going to make them less wide. I need to open up a little bit more room in this kit. Of course, I've got my 12 inch knife here. I've got a paintbrush to be doing the paint when we're all said and done. This tool here is actually for me to use for doing Mediterranean and Santa Fe texture. It's not the correct tool, but it fits in the kit, and for a patch that's medium in size and no larger, this tool actually will get that job done very nicely once you get a little bit of practice with it. And as with a lot of my kits, I'm going to throw a bunch of rags in there all the time because you just always need to be ready to clean stuff up. I've got 2 bottles of water in here. These bottles of water are for the actual bags of hot mud up here in case we don't have water on at the site. And these 2 bottles of water, generally, this should be enough to do 4 or 5 bags. It should be enough to do any, again, 1 square foot or less patch. I've also got some trash bags in here just to make sure we can stay clean. And this is the tarp that we're going to roll out and we're going to tape to the wall underneath our patch to make sure that we don't make any unnecessary messes. And then finally, in the very bottom of this kit, and this is where I'm going to do some rearranging, but in the bottom of this kit, I have my scrapped piece of drywall that I'm actually going to use to be making the patch. But right now what I have is I have this 1 piece of drywall, and then I have, what do I have, 6 of these stringers. So I think what I want to do actually is rearrange some things so that I have 2 pieces of drywall this size and maybe 4 stringers, or if I change the sizes of the stringers, then maybe I can still fit 6 in here with 2 of these pieces of drywall. But this is the entire kit, guys, and other than, with the exception of texture, because we're not including texture here, with the exception of texture, this is literally everything you need. And you can even do the texture, like I said, for Mediterranean and Santa Fe, but if you need a knockdown or an orange peel or something like that, then you're going to have to buy a can or you're going to have to use your hopper, whatever method you use. But outside of texture, if it's not Mediterranean or Santa Fe, this kit is 1 kit that I can grab, take into the job, never need to go back outside to my van to grab anything else. This will get me through the entire patch job. And then one last note that I want to make is this kit is not in its final form. I'm always going to be updating and changing these kits around until I feel like they are in their final form. But this kit currently is actually a brand new kit that I have not fully tested through to see, again, if I want to have less of something, more of something else. I may have additions that I make, or I may have subtractions that I make. For example, this right here, do I need to have one of these in every single kit? Probably not. I probably don't need a utility knife in every single kit. I can probably just put the utility knife in an EDC bag, require the EDC bag every day for every employee, including myself, and maybe even have them carrying one on their belt additionally. Then I don't need this in every kit. That opens up a space, and I can put something else that's more useful into that space. So if you guys want to download the inventory, if you want to download this inventory right here to build your own kit, you can go to the description of this or any of my videos, scroll all the way to the bottom, you're going to find a link for my downloadable business documents, and you can download this in there. So now let's get back over and see how that patch is doing. Alright, so we waited 5 to 10 minutes, and I can touch this with my fingertips, and I can feel that it's no longer sticking to my fingers, which means this is set up just enough for the next step. And that next step is going to be, because this is a no sand method, so the next step is going to be to remove any high points without sandpaper. And the way we're going to do that is with our 12-inch knife, and we're going to hold our knife very gently, just a couple fingertips here, and we're going to make the angle that we're attacking this from, if this is perpendicular, then we want to be almost parallel. And all we're going to do is very, very gently, let's turn this, there we go. Very, very gently, with almost no pressure, we're going to slide over the top of this patch. And any high points that we might have left behind are going to slowly come off, and I'll show you all the evidence of that here in just a minute. Other than visual, slide your thumb along here, and this is what we've gotten off of here. So this is all of the material that made up our high points, and now I can look at this, and again, I can touch it because it's set just enough. I can feel that it's nice and smooth, and there are no high points. Now, I do feel like I see something here. See, I don't though, there's nothing there. So now the next step for this is we're going to put a second skim coat on, and once we finish this second skim coat, this is going to be ready for texture. So let's put our knife down over here, and we'll grab another bag of our 5-minute hot mud. Grab our water, we'll do the same process. We put in just about enough water, but hopefully not quite enough water. Get the mixing started. When I'm mixing this, as you can see, I'm just coming in from the bottom and squeezing it. Now it's starting to harden up a little on me. I feel like I'm going to be adding water to this one twice maybe, so I'm not going to close the bag just yet unless it starts feeling, yeah, it's feeling pretty soft. So let's go ahead and close this bag up. If we have to open it again, it's not a big deal. Squeeze all the air out. And now I can just start really squeezing the heck out of this. And like I said, we want this one, the first one we mixed really thin. This one, it's not that we want it thick, right? We never want thick. We want it to be at the very least proper. But the first one was a little thin, and then this one we're going to try to mix just right so that it behaves more like what you would consider traditional mud to want to behave like. Also, if you can see here, I don't know if you can, but this is already starting to lighten in color quite a bit because it really is setting in. So feel around on here, make sure you don't have any little chunks and stuff in there. It's really imperative that you don't have chunks. You want to mix this good. And with 5-minute mud, that's another reason I like doing it in these bags. A great drywall guy, yes, can use a pan or a hawk. And a great drywall guy can mix it up just about perfectly, really quickly, and he can even keep mixing it on the wall. I'm not a great drywall guy, I'm a handyman. So, again, we're done with this bag. Let's cut that tip off. You can just bite it off too if you want. Here we go. Get everything squeezed up, and we're not even gonna need, I think, half of this bag. Make sure that knife is real clean, so you're not leaving any ridges in anything. Lay your mud out onto it. Even this much mud already is probably too much. Get it spread out. Oh, look, see, I did have some little bumps in there still. It's okay. We're going to be all right, but that's why it's imperative to really make sure that you mix this stuff super well. As you can see, I'm not an expert with mud. I don't appear to be an expert with mud. I'm not pretty when I do this. Probably look like quite the idiot. However, this is done. This is done right here. I don't really need to do anything else unless we're doing a level 5 finish, which you might be, in which case you're going to do maybe 3 or 4 of these coats and really spread it out. But what you'll notice is my first coat was confined to here. Now my second skim coat came out just like 3 more inches. This is all nice and smooth. So at this point, we're gonna do the same thing we did before, which is to just let this sit for 5 to 10, maybe up to 15 minutes. We're gonna let it sit. And while it's sitting, we're gonna clean this knife back off so we have a clean knife ready to use. Again, we can just drop this down to the floor right here. We do not need it, and we put a tarp down, and we've taped that tarp to the wall so we can just drop that there. Just make sure you don't step in it. Now I do wanna show you, here's our first bag that we dropped down to the floor. See how it's no longer liquid. It's nice and hardened up already because it is 5-minute mud. And by the way, you can have some fun with your kids with this stuff too, because you can put it into molds and it'll set really quickly. So at this point, you're gonna clean off your knife, you're gonna put all that away, and the next step is really just gonna be to wait the 5 to 10 minutes, and then we're gonna use our knife again to very gently scrape off any high points. And then, so if this is a level 5 finish, we're probably going to skim it a few more times. We're going to be using some sandpaper, perhaps with a level 5. Some guys tell me they can do the level 5 pretty well with just sponges. I don't know. I don't do a lot of level 5. Here in Tucson, we have a whole lot of Mediterranean and Santa Fe texture, tons of it. And the great thing about that is that I can, in fact, use this tool here, and I can take the mud and I can do my texture with this flat section here. For a patch no bigger than this, I can copy most Mediterranean and Santa Fe texture. If you want to learn about texture, you are going to have to watch other videos. Patching is its own skill and texturing is its own skill, and the two don't belong together, but I will be doing texturing videos. So you've got a level 5 flat finish, you've got Mediterranean and or Santa Fe, which is kind of just random / Adobe, if you think of something like Adobe or stucco, although it's not really like stucco. But you go ahead and get your texture on after this is nice and set and you do your scraping. The other two types that you're going to see a lot of is going to be orange peel and or knockdown. So for those, again, you're going to let this sit and then you're going to spray your orange peel or your knockdown. If it's a knockdown, you'll take your 12-inch knife again and you'll gently come back and flatten it, and then you're going to be done. Basically, this is going to be ready for paint. Now, the one piece of advice I do want to give you about the paint is when you put one coat of paint on this, it's going to flash. When you put a second coat of paint on this, it's probably still going to flash. And flashing is where this is just sucking up the paint, so it's not giving you the actual sheen that you want the outside of the paint to give you. So you're going to have to either put many coats, or the correct way to do this is going to be just to put a PVA primer on here. So once you've got it scraped flat and you've gotten your texture on, whatever texture that's going to be, you've let your texture sit for a little while and you're ready to do the painting, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to paint a PVA primer onto here, and then typically you're going to be able to get away with only one coat of paint after that coat of PVA primer in order to finish this off completely. But if you want to do 3, that's going to make sure that your sheen is really absolutely perfect. And then one last thing that I want to show you, although it's not related specifically to the patching, is when you do your paint, one of the things that you should be doing on your paint is feathering out. And what feathering out is let's say, of course, I want to paint right here. I don't want a defined line where my paint ends and the old original paint in the house starts. What I want to do is I want to match the original paint, and then over here towards that edge, I just want to feather out. Now, you're not going to be painting over here. Your brush isn't going to be wet enough really to paint over here. You're grabbing your solid paint from here, and as you feather out, and you can go back and forth like this, but as you feather out, you're just sort of blending in your new matching paint with the old paint so that if it's not a precise match, it's a blend rather than a defined line that separates the two. So as you can see, this is a super quick and easy job, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about how much I charge for this. So let's talk about how much time I've put into this so far. In a real life scenario, from the moment you knock on that door and you walk in and you tape your tarp to the ground and you come up here and you grab your piece of drywall, you cut your drywall bigger than the hole in the wall, you go ahead and trace that, you knock out that hole in the wall, you put your stringers in, you put your drywall in, you put your tape on, you put your first coat of mud on. Up to that point, that is a super fast process. When you've done this a bunch of times and you're not really wondering about it and you're not really thinking about it and you're just doing because you know how to do it. When you're in that position, this whole thing all combined to get this done up to that first coat that you put on is at most 10 to 15 minutes from the moment you walked in the door. So let's say you're 15 minutes in, now you're gonna wait 10 minutes before you can come back and do a little scraping over it. So at that point, you're 25 minutes in. Now, within 5 minutes of being 25 minutes in, so you've put your patch in, you've done your skim coat, and you've scraped your skim coat, and you're 25 minutes in at the most. Your next skim coat is only going to take you 5 minutes. So now you're a half hour in with this skim coat. So we're a half hour in, we're going to wait 10 more minutes, we're going to do a second scraping, so that's going to put us 40 minutes in to get to the point where we're ready to do our texture. And doing the texture, if it's a Mediterranean or a Santa Fe, I'm going to have that texture done in 10 minutes at the most. And that's even if I mess it up, don't like it, scrape it off and redo it. That's going to be 10 minutes at the most to get the Mediterranean or the Santa Fe texture on. If I'm going to be doing a knockdown or an orange peel texture, then perhaps that's going to take me somewhere in the ballpark of 15 minutes. So by the time we get all of the texture on, we're basically an hour in, no matter what kind of texture it is. And I want to reiterate, the more you do this, the faster you get. There are times where I'm at this point right here with texture going on and just about ready to let it sit and wait a few minutes before I paint. I'm oftentimes at this point just waiting when I haven't even been at the job 35 or 40 minutes altogether. So let's say that I did my Santa Fe or Mediterranean texture. Let's say I'm an hour in. Now I'm going to have to still apply some paint to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have to wait. And this time I'm going to be waiting maybe 20 minutes. If you want to speed that up, you can use a blow dryer on this. I don't really highly recommend it, and I only recommend it if you're using certain products such as this Easy Sand 5 that are not going to shrink back into the cracks underneath. But after you wait the required amount of time, you can come back over this and you can paint it. And like I said, you're either going to give it one coat of paint after a coat of primer, or maybe 2 coats of paint after a coat of primer, or you might end up doing just 3 coats of actual paint. But I do recommend using the primer every single time if you can. And by the time that paint is all done, I'm going to be an hour and a half in. So, an hour and a half, and that is an hour and a half max, guys, maximum. I'm never going to take more than an hour and a half to do this. So for that hour and a half to do this patch, including the texture, including the paint, I've been at 350. And I honestly probably should be at a little bit more than 350 considering that it includes the texture and the paint, because what a lot of guys are out there doing is they're coming by and they're doing the patch and they're even doing the texture, but then they're not doing the paint. So they're having to charge another trip fee to come do the paint, or somebody sending a painter to do the paint. But for me, this whole thing painted, done, out the door, never need to look at it again. I'm sitting at 350 for an hour and a half of work, which is easily more than $200 an hour. This is how you make money as a handyman. It's not by knowing how to patch, it's by knowing how to get this patch done correctly in a solid way that you're not going to need to come back and mess with later, and to do that as efficiently and quickly as possible. And when you can get this done quickly and efficiently and in a solid way that you're not going to get a callback on, now all of a sudden you're making 200 plus an hour, and the more of these you can book, the better. And the faster you get them done, the happier your property managers or your other clients are, which means the more of them they're going to want you to do. So this can become a very high-paying specialty for you. In fact, just FYI, if you want to just focus on being a drywall finisher, not even a drywall hanger, just doing patches and doing drywall finishing, you can really get wealthy just specializing in drywall finishing, because there aren't enough guys out there who are becoming specialists at this. So finally, you can go to the description of this video, scroll down to the bottom, that's where you can download the inventory sheet for this. Within my downloads, you can also get things like my jobs list with pricing. You can also get my custom line items. My custom line items are basically my standardized pricing that I use for 100 or so jobs in my handyman business. You can download my custom line items. It's a CSV file, and if you have Jobber, you can upload that CSV file into your Jobber account so that your Jobber account will be populated with my CSV files for my pricing, one of which may be this. I don't know if it's in there or not. It will be soon if it's not. But you can download my CSV files for my pricing. I do webinars every weekend showing my administrative workflow. I do a lot of campouts on this channel where I actually go camping and invite you guys to come along with me. So go to the description for that. And also, just last reminder, I have 0 paywalls on this channel. Everything I give to you for free. I do not want your money. That should go to your business and your family. However, I do partner with ethical brands that I like, that I actually use. I do partner with those brands, and that's how I'm able to take the time to buy the materials, to make the videos, to edit the videos, and to put all this effort in to bring you these how-to videos. So if you want to support what I'm doing, scroll down through the description, and for the things that you're already going to need or use, and only for those. I don't want you spending any money that you don't already need to spend as a business or as a DIYer. So scroll through my description. If you see something that's kind of already on your radar, then just do me a favor and use my link to get yourself there, and that's going to help me out and make it so I can keep running this channel. Otherwise, if you guys have any questions, I want you to email me at bulletproofhandymanbusiness@gmail.com, or I want you to comment on this video, and I will answer every email, and I will answer every single comment. And with all that being said, I love you guys. I hope you're out there killing it, and I will see y'all on the next one.